A very good evening from Johannesburg. I'm Siyabonga Magadla, an entrepreneur, founder and chairman of SMME Africa. Welcome to Let's Have It Out. Tonight and every night here on ENCA, a variety of different newsmakers will get their chance to host this program, interview people with whom they disagree, and give you a chance to get involved in the conversation. Unfiltered, accountable, and accessible, and it all starts now. Tonight, the issue on my mind is the persistent and stubborn high levels of youth unemployment. Statistics South Africa has recently released the quarterly labor force survey for the second quarter, which once more shows a rise in the number of young people not in employment, education, and training. The unemployment rate jumped to 27%, which equates to 6.1 million unemployed South Africans. The number of people between the ages of 15 and 34 not in training, education, or employment increased by 0.4% year-on-year to reach 39.3, or 4 out of 10 young people. And while unemployment rates vary depending on the education levels, it is more higher amongst young people irrespective of their level of education. With all of this, government, business, labor, and community have recently signed an agreement to create jobs. Therefore, in reality, what are the blockages that prevent young people in particular from accessing employment and economic opportunities? And how do we practically unlock these blockages? My guest tonight is Mr. Thulani Chefuta, a convener at NEDLAC, as well as a former youth activist. But first, we want you to get involved in the conversation. Here is how.
Tweet us at ENCA using the hashtag LHIO. Call us on 011-759-6340 or send us a WhatsApp or WhatsApp video on 082-884-6370. And make sure those videos are no longer than 30 seconds, please.
Mr. Chefuta, thank you very much and welcome to ENCA's Let's Have It Out.
Good evening, Sia, and to the viewers at home.
Having heard the background and the introduction in terms of the statistics that Stats SA has released, which shows that there's a persistent rise in the unemployment of young people, are we sitting on a time bomb?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity and for the discussion. Categorically, we can classify this as a disaster. As a disaster because it affects the majority of the population in South Africa. It has been confirmed that South Africa has a youthful population more than any other population group. What that means is that South Africa has a youth bulge. So if the majority of those who constitute that youth bulge as young people cannot find employment, it means that the majority of those who should be working the economy, the majority of those who should be having skills to do business, grow the economy, and deliver a productive society are out of work. And that can only spell one thing, a disaster for that society.
Clearly, there's a challenge in terms of how we're dealing with issues because, as you are correctly putting it, South Africa has got a youth bulge. And ideally, we should be taking advantage of that window of opportunity. But we are not. Why is it that we are not doing that?
Well, having a youthful population is an opportunity and a threat at the same time. It is an opportunity only in as far as society can invest in the lives of those young people, such that later on they are able to use those investments and be productive members of society. But if society sits down and problematize young people and say these young people are busy with drugs, these young people are not in education, these young people are unemployed, and keep on repeating those problems without doing anything about them, it can only prove to be moving in one direction, that those young people will later on not be a resource that society can benefit from, which is called, in other terms, a demographic dividend. You only draw a dividend after you have invested. So sitting and looking at these young people and saying, we have a problem here, will not solve the problem. We need to take action and invest in the lives of those young people and make sure that they become a resource that will be productive in society.
The question of youth unemployment has been a question that we've been grappling with for a number of years now. And one of the reasons that is often advanced as to the reason why there's persistent youth unemployment is the mismatch between the skills that the labor entrants themselves possess and that which the labor market requires. How do we address this contradiction? Because there seems to be this continuous contradiction. And how do young people acquire these prerequisite skills that are able to be absorbed in the labor market? And who's supposed to provide them with these skills?
Well, Sia, one thing which we should highlight is that there seems to be a shift in goalposts in as far as creating employment opportunities for young people is concerned. The first thing that society calls of young people to do is that they must remain in the education system, get knowledge and skills so that they can get employment. But what happens is that when young people remain disciplined and acquire this education, they are told that you don't have experience. When they then begin to acquire that experience, they are told that they do not have the right attitude in the workplace. And so there seems to be shifting goalposts. And so the argument of skills mismatch does not have any empirical backing. To the contrary, what Stats SA has suggested in a study of young people is that there are three major binding structural constraints to youth unemployment. The first is education. The second is skills. And the third is race. Even when it relates to skills, it does not talk about skills mismatch. It talks about lack of skills. And those skills that are so much required in the labor market, they are skills which are known in advance by those who own and manage the economy, predominantly being the private sector, and to some extent being government. And so what it means is that the discourse of our economy has shifted from theoretical skills and knowledge into technical, occupational, and vocational type skills. And therefore it means that the TVET colleges must be positioned to be the centers of excellence that provide those skills, where major investments are going in our economy, such that young people acquire those skills and immediately enter the labor market. What we should then do to position young people to acquire those skills and enter the labor market is that employers, being the private sector by and large, must inform the curriculum content of what is taught and trained by the TVET colleges, such that the graduates from colleges in turn are able to respond to the skills needs of the labor market.
We'll get back to that issue that you are raising. It's a very interesting one, and there's something that I want to pick your brain on in relation to that. But for now, let's pay the bills. After the break, we will continue with the conversation.